Hello, dear classmates and teacher. I'm Genesis Muñoz, and this is my exposition about many topics, but specifically descriptive linguistics. Okay, so let's start by talking about the meaning of descriptive linguistics and the focus of this topic. So descriptive linguistics is a subdivision of linguistics that study the structures of languages around the world and how a determined language works or how it is used, okay? Additionally, it studies language changes by comparing that particular language to other languages with patterns of other languages, okay? It also studies how language has evolved through time, okay? Since the beginning of times until nowadays. Hence, its main focus is to analyze and describe language structures and patterns to be able to register that language and in that way detect rules that native speaker follows when they are trying to produce words or in the production of speech, okay? So now let's talk about related language. Related language refers to the relationship between certain group of language that can be expressed or can be identified by finding the proto-language of those language. And when we talk about proto-language, we are referring to the ancestral language, okay? So when a group of language share the same proto-language, it means that they are related. For example, in this case, we have Proto-Indo-European, which will be the proto-language, and then we have Slavo-Germanic, Aryo-Graco-Italo-Celtic, which will be the other language. All the other languages that you are watching right now are related because they share the same proto-language, which in this case is Proto-Indo-European. Then we have language family, which is really similar to related language. The terms language family refers to language that belongs to the same ancestor or proto-language, which means that each language family has its own proto-language, okay? And it studies the relationship between language. So taking in count the previous picture, okay, this one. All the languages that you're watching right now are related and are family languages, okay? Why? Because they share the same proto-language. And additionally, besides sharing the same proto-language, they also share features. They also share some similarities, maybe in phonological patterns, or maybe they are words that contain the same meaning and are written in a very similar way. Okay, then we have examples of main language families. We have Afroasiatic, Austronesian, Indo-European, Niger-Congo, Sino-Tibetan, and Trans-New Guinea. These are examples of language families. Okay, then we have another example of language families. We have Romance and Germanic language groups, okay? So we can say that their main difference is the place where they origin, okay, their origin. For example, Romance language evolves from Vulgar Latin, while Germanic evolved from Proto-Germanic, okay? So besides their origins, they differ in certain aspects of language, such as intonation patterns, grammar structures, and things like that. So now let's look some examples of languages that are into this language family, okay? In the case of Romance languages, we have French, Spanish, Romanian, Portuguese, Italian. As you see, all of them evolved from Vulgar Latin. Then we have Germanic languages. Let me move my face. Okay, Germanic languages. As you see, here we can find English, here we can find German, Dutch, Icelandic, and all of them, okay? All of them are example of Germanic language family and Romance language family. Okay, let's look some examples. Let me move my face again. Okay. We have Romance language family as an example. We have that in Catalan, the word paella, which means pan. Paella is a dish, okay, a type of food. In Italian, it is called pandela, and in Portuguese, it is called panela, okay? So as you see, it sounds pretty similar. And in Germanic, we have in English, the word house is translated to house in German, and to Huis in Dutch, and to Hus in Swedish, Danish, and Norwegian. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. I'm sorry if I don't. But as you see, in these examples, we can analyze that since they belong to the same language family, they share some phonological patterns, okay? So now, it is very important for you to consider that the fact that two words in two languages sounds similar or are written in a similar way does not necessarily mean that they belong to the same language family, okay? Because to identify when two languages belong to the same language family, it is important that they not only sound similar, they also must share the same meaning, okay? For example, in this case, the word house, when it is translated into all the languages that you're watching right now, they share the same phonological patterns, okay? Let's say that it sounds similar, okay? But it is the meaning of that word stays, okay? All these translations that you are watching right now means the same thing, means house, okay? You have to be careful with that because if you don't, you can get confused. For example, in Spanish and in English, we have the word carpeta and we have the word carpet, but they do not share the same meaning, okay? For example, carpeta in Spanish means folder. It's an object that you use to keep your documents, okay? But carpet in English means, is an object that you put on the floor to walk on it, okay? So as you see, they do not share the same meaning, even though they sound similar and they are written in a similar way. And that's because English and Spanish don't belong to the same language family. Remember that Spanish belongs to Romance language family, and English belongs to the Germanic language family, okay? Okay. Then we have the language family tree model, okay? The language family tree model is basically a visual organizer created by August Schleicher that shows the relationship between language, assuming a genetic connection between them. And with genetic connection, we are talking about proto-language, okay? They share the same proto-language. So he created a visual organizer to explain that in a better way. Here we have, as you can see, it is a huge tree and it is subdivided into many categories, okay? So this is a visual organizer that he used to, let's say, categorize or divide the proto-languages with its own languages, okay? In groups, in family languages. Okay. So then we have Sanskrit language, okay? Sanskrit language is the earliest recorded of all Indo-European languages, okay? Which explain why it is considered the mother or the genesis of all Indo-European languages. It's because it is a very important language. It's because without Sanskrit, there are many languages that will not exist nowadays, okay? So some examples that prove the links between Sanskrit and Indo-European languages are, for example, in Sanskrit, the word for tree is trayas, is similar to the Latin tres and the Greek tres, okay? As you see, all of these words share the same meaning, okay? As we talked before. The word sarpa in Sanskrit means a snake, shares a phonetic link with serpents in Latin, okay? Then we have mata or mother in Sanskrit, which is mother in German. And finally, we have the word dan, which means to give, and which is donar in Spanish, okay? So as you see, there are many similarities in terms of phonetic links. So it means that there is a relationship between the Sanskrit languages and the Indo-European languages. That is all. Thank you very much.